Hello everyone, welcome back to Sulekha Physics classes. It is the most easiest way to learn all the concept of physics through this class. Hope you all are doing well. Today I am going to start one short revision of chapter 12, that is atoms. In the last chapter, I told you that chapter 11, that is dual nature of radiation and matter, then this chapter 12, and after that chapter 13, that is nuclei. All these three chapters are theoretical portion. It's very small chapter, right? And all these three chapters consist of 12 marks. So it's very easy to score 12 marks from these three chapters, right? If you spend your 2 or 3 days for these three chapters. So let us start. Quick revision of this chapter, atom. In this chapter, no portion is deleted for this year. There are 2 or 3 very important topics like alpha particle scattering experiment, then Rutherford models of atom, then Bohr's model, and then energy level, hydrogen spectrum. All these topics are important. So let us discuss one by one all these topics. So after discovery of electron, this scientist Thomson, J.J. Thomson model, he suggested that as atom is electrically neutral, right, and if electrons are present inside the atom, then there must be some positive charge also, so that it becomes stable and neutral. So in 1898, J.J. Thomson proposed that atom is a sphere. Atom is a sphere of positively charged matter with electrons embedded in it, like seeds in watermelon. Electrons are embedded in this sphere like seeds in watermelon, or plums in pudding. Pudding means dessert you take after lunch or dinner, and inside the pudding there are number of fruits are there, that is plums. So this structure of atom is like that. Positive charge are uniformly distributed throughout the volume and electrons are embedded in that positive charge, right? Like this electrons, seeds in watermelon or plums in pudding. That's why this model was also called plum pudding model. He suggested that atom is a sphere and a positive charge is uniformly distributed throughout the volume and electrons are embedded in that volume. Now, one important point about this model is that the mutual repulsion between electrons is balanced by what? Is balanced by their attraction with positively charged matter. So the atom as a whole is stable and neutral. So this was proposed by J.J. Thomson in 1898. But there are some drawbacks of this model. Electrons are accelerating inside the atom, and due to accelerating charged particles, electromagnetic waves are produced. So this model could not explain the origin of several spectral series in case of hydrogen and other atoms also. Here this atom unable to explain how a spectral series are formed in case of hydrogen and other atoms. Also, it failed to explain the large angle scattering of alpha particle in Rutherford's experiment. I will discuss this Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment after this one. In that one, this model was not able to explain how this alpha particle is scattered through large angle. So these are two drawbacks of this, or you can say failure of Thomson model, right? So after this, we will discuss Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment. Okay, please take a screenshot of this one. Now, alpha particle scattering experiment. Actually, on suggestion of Rutherford, in 1911, Geiger and Marsden performed this alpha particle scattering experiment. That's why it is also called Rutherford scattering experiment, right? Because on suggestion of Rutherford, these two scientists performed experiments on the scattering of alpha particles through thin gold foils, right, and obtained some information regarding the structure of atom. So first of all, what is this alpha particle? Actually, alpha particle is a helium ion. You know helium, He24, it has 2 electrons and 2 protons, right? So if 2 electrons are removed from this helium atom, it becomes helium ion. This is helium ion having how many charge? Plus 2 charge. So this alpha particle is a helium ion having charge plus 2 electron, and mass is equal to 4 times mass of proton. You must remember this one. Alpha particle has plus 2 charge and 4 times mass of proton, right? Now this is experimental setup of alpha particle scattering experiment. There is a radioactive source. This is S. It is a radioactive source of alpha particles. Here alpha particles are emitted in all possible directions, right? Now these alpha particles are collimated into a narrow beam of particles passing through this collimator. This collimator is made up of lead block, and if you pass these alpha particles through this collimated beam of alpha particles are produced. Now these beam of alpha particles falls on this thin gold foil. Its thickness is very small. Now these alpha particles scatter at different directions, which can be observed with the help of this rotatable detector having zinc sulfide screen. This one is zinc sulfide screen and microscope. Now number of alpha particles scattered at different directions are measured with the help of this detector, right? When these alpha particles falls on this zinc sulfide screen, it produces some flash which is viewed through this microscope. Now the number of alpha particles scattered at different angles can be observed, right? This one is a graph between scattering angle theta and number of alpha particles scattered through this small scattering angle theta. And there are several observations on the basis of this experiment. Some of the alpha particles passes straight through this zinc sulfide screen. Some of the alpha particles is scattered through a small angle theta. Some of the alpha particles, this is scattered through large angle theta. Some of the alpha particles bounces back like this one. Some of the alpha particle goes straight through this thin gold aluminum foil. Some of the alpha particles passes scattered through a small angle theta. Some of the alpha particle scattered through 90 degree. Some of the alpha particle bounces back scattered to 180 degree. Why these scattering of alpha particle takes place? So on the basis of this experiment, Rutherford came to the conclusion that what is present inside the atom, which with the help of which these alpha particles are scattered. So on the basis of this experiment, Rutherford gave some structure of atom. So please take a screenshot of this one first, then we'll discuss different observations and conclusions on the basis of this experiment. Now, there are different conclusions drawn from the observations of Rutherford alpha scattering experiment. First one is, most of the alpha particle goes straight after passing through a thin gold foil. Some of the alpha particle, this one passes straight through this thin gold foil. This shows that most of the space within the atom is empty. That's why it passes straight through the thin gold foil. There is no deflection of the alpha particle. It means some of the space within the atoms is empty, right? Second, few alpha particles are deflected through large angles. Why it is deflected through large angle? Alpha particle is a positively charged. It means some positively charge is present inside the atom. So few alpha particles are deflected through large angles due to repulsion of positive charge. And this shows that atom has some positively charged core called nucleus at the center of the atom. At the center of the atom, there is a core called nucleus which is positively charged. That's why some of the alpha particles are deflected through some angle, right? Now last one, very few alpha particles suffer deflection of 180 degrees. Some of the alpha particle retraces back through 180 degree. This shows that size of the nucleus is very small because very few alpha particles retraces its path. It means whatever positive charge that is the core or nucleus present at the center of this atom, its size is very small. That's why small particle retraces its path. So these are different conclusions drawn from the observation of Rutherford scattering experiment, right? You must remember all these 3 points. Now there are two important definitions. One is impact parameter, another one is distance of closest approach. What is this impact parameter? It is denoted by B. It is distance of initial velocity vector of alpha particle. Suppose this one is nucleus and this is the center of nucleus, right? Now alpha particle is moving and enters inside this thin gold foil. So it is perpendicular distance, you can write perpendicular distance, this distance. It is perpendicular distance of initial velocity vector v of alpha particle from the center of nucleus. This one is center of nucleus and this alpha particle moving with some velocity vector v. So this perpendicular distance is called impact parameter and its formula is B equal to ZE square cot theta by 2 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught Ek. Here different terms you know, Z is atomic number, E is charge, theta is scattering angle, here epsilon naught permittivity of free space, Ek is kinetic energy of electron, right? So this one is impact parameter. You must remember this formula, just remember it. Distance of closest approach is denoted by R naught. What is this distance of closest approach? You know, most of the alpha particles retraces its path through 180 degree, right? So this distance from the center of the nucleus to the point where these alpha particles just stop to retrace its path, this distance is called distance of closest approach. This one is center of nucleus and from this point alpha particle retraces path. So this distance from the center, this one is distance of closest approach. You can define this way: at a certain distance from the nucleus, this one is the nucleus, at a certain distance from the nucleus, alpha particle stops for a moment and then begin to retrace its path. This certain distance from the center of the nucleus is called distance of closest approach, denoted by R naught, and its formula is just, remember this formula also, 4k ZE square by mv square, where k is Coulomb's constant. Its value is what? 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton Coulomb square per meter square, right? Okay. Here is Newton square, meter square per Coulomb square, okay? And in terms of kinetic energy, you write just half mv square, so here 2 gets cancelled, twice k ZE square by Ek. It is in terms of kinetic energy. And this size of this distance, this R naught, is in the range of Fermi, because through a very small distance it retraces its path. The size of the nucleus is very small. It is concentrated at the center of the atom and its size is very small because only some of the alpha particle retraces its path. So in comparison to size of the atom or radius of the atom, the size of the nucleus is very small, right? It is in the range of Fermi. Okay, so this is a different conclusions drawn from this Rutherford scattering experiment. After that, we'll discuss electron orbit. Please take a screenshot of this one first. Now, Rutherford's model of an atom. On the basis of alpha scattering experiment, Rutherford proposed the following model of an atom. Number 1. An atom consists of a small and massive core in which the entire positive charge and whole mass of an atom are concentrated. That core is called nucleus. So nucleus is at the center of the atom where entire positive charge and whole mass is concentrated. This is first point. Now second, the size of the nucleus, or you can say core, where entire positive charge and mass is concentrated, is very small as compared to size of atom. Size of nucleus, it is in the range of Fermi, 10 to the power minus 15 meter, and it is very small as compared to size of atom, which is in the range of angstrom, 10 to the power minus 10 meter. Suppose this is an atom and this one is core, nucleus, and the size of this nucleus is very small as compared to the size of the atom, right? Size of nucleus is in the range of Fermi and size of atom is in the range of angstrom. Now, next point, the nucleus is surrounded by number of electrons so that the total negative charge is equal to total positive charge on the nucleus. Here at the center, positive charge is concentrated, right? The whole positive charge. Now, this nucleus is surrounded by a number of electrons and the total charge on these electrons is equal to total positive charge on the nucleus, so that the atom is electrically neutral, right, and stable. So total negative charge is equal to total positive charge on the nucleus, so that atom becomes neutral, right? Now, last point about Rutherford's model of an atom is the electrons revolve around the nucleus in various orbits. Right now, this center nucleus is there and electrons revolves around the nucleus in various orbits, right? Just as planets revolve around the sun. The in circular motion, to provide circular motion, centripetal force is required. So here, centripetal force required for their revolution is provided by the electrostatic attraction between electrons and protons. There is an electrostatic force of attraction between this positive charge nucleus and negative charge electron. So this electrostatic force of attraction between electrons and positive charge means nucleus. This provides centripetal force for the revolution of electron around the nucleus, right? So this centripetal force is provided by electrostatic force of attraction. So these different points are according to Rutherford's on the basis of alpha scattering experiment, right? But again, there are some limitations of Rutherford's model. After discovery of new model, after that we will discuss about Bohr's model, in which there are some limitations, there are some drawbacks of this Rutherford model atom is discussed, right? So what are different limitations of Rutherford's model? First one is Rutherford's model cannot explain stability of an atom, as the negatively charged electrons are continuously revolving around the positive charged nucleus right now. So they are continuously attracted by the positive charge nucleus. So it finally falls into the nucleus. So Rutherford could not explain stability of an atom, because according to electromagnetic theory, an accelerated charged particle must radiate electromagnetic energy. It means when electron revolves around the nucleus in a circular orbit, it continuously loses their energy and finally follow a radii of circular path of decreasing radii. So they must follow, electrons must follow a spiral path, right, and finally falls into the nucleus. It means Rutherford's model could not explain the stability of an atom. And second point is, as electron spiral inwards, like this one, electron spiral inwards, and at the center nucleus is there. So when the electron spiral inwards, their angular velocities and frequencies are changing continuously, right? And so frequency of emitted light will also change. Hence, they emit continuous spectrum, continuously radiates energy. So they emit continuous spectrum instead of line spectrum. It means second drawback is that Rutherford model could not explain the line spectrum of an atom. According to Rutherford model, it explained continuous spectrum instead of line spectrum. So these two are drawbacks of Rutherford's model. First one is regarding stability of an atom, and second one is regarding line spectrum of an atom. So these limitations are further explained by Bohr in Bohr's atomic model. What are the different postulates of Bohr's atomic model? What is the structure of an atom according to Bohr? I will discuss that one. So please take a screenshot of this one fast. Then we discuss Bohr's atomic model. Now, Bohr's atomic model. After Rutherford nuclear model of an atom, Bohr proposed atomic model for the spectra emitted by atom, especially for hydrogen atom. Different postulates of this Bohr's atomic model is: number one, nuclear concept. This nuclear concept was also given by Rutherford alpha scattering experiment. According to this nuclear concept, an atom consists of a small and massive central core where all the positive charges are located and whole mass of the atom is concentrated. That central core is called nucleus, around which the electrons revolves. This one is the core of the atom. This one is called nucleus, in which whole positive charge and mass of the body is concentrated, right? And around this nucleus electrons revolve. The centripetal force is provided by the electrostatic force of attraction between these electrons and nucleus, right? It provides centripetal force for the rotation of electrons around the nucleus, right? So this one is nuclear concept. Second one is stationary orbits. Electrons always revolve around the nucleus in a fixed orbit where it does not radiate energy. If electrons revolve in a particular fixed orbit, right, it does not radiate any energy. That non-radiating orbits are called stationary orbits. But when it jumps from one stationary orbit to another stationary orbit, it absorbs or emits radiation, right? So this one is a stationary orbit. Non-radiating orbits are called stationary orbits where electrons revolves in a particular fixed orbit, right? Third one is quantum condition. Now, there are different orbits for the revolution of electrons around the nucleus, but electrons, out of all possible orbits, electrons revolve only in that orbit whose angular momentum is an integral multiple of h by 2 pi. Electrons only revolve on those permitted orbits for which angular momentum is L or mvr is an integral multiple of h by 2 pi. It means nh by 2 pi, where n is a positive integer and n may be 1, 2, 3 dash dash dash. This n is also called principal quantum number, and this condition is called Bohr's quantization condition. This condition is very important to explain hydrogen spectra, right? So what is Bohr's quantum condition? That angular momentum is an integral multiple of h by 2 pi. Only in those orbits electrons revolve. Then fourth one is frequency condition. You know, when an electron revolves in a particular fixed orbit, that is a stationary orbit, it does not radiate any energy. But when an electron jumps from or moves from one orbit to another orbit, if it moves from lower to higher orbit, it requires some energy, right? And when electrons moves from higher to lower orbit, it radiates or emits some energy. So an atom can emit or absorb radiation in the form of discrete energy photons. You know, energy of one photon is h nu. So when an electrons emit or absorb radiations, when it moves from one orbit to another orbit, it just emits or absorbs radiation in the form of discrete energy photons. It means difference between the two energy level is h nu. When it moves from lower to higher orbit, it absorbs energy of photon, that is equal to h nu, and when it moves from higher to lower orbit, it emits energy that is equal to h nu, right? So this one is frequency condition. From this one you can write, suppose E2 is energy of higher orbit, E1 is energy of lower orbit. So energy difference, whatever the energy difference, that is equal to h nu, or you can write nu equal to h by E2 minus E1. This one is frequency condition according to Bohr's atomic model. Right now, when electron moves from lower to higher orbit, it requires some energy and absorption spectrum is formed. When electron jumps from higher to lower orbit, it radiates, it emits some energy and emission spectrum is formed, right? So these are different postulates of Bohr's atomic model. Now after this we will discuss Bohr's theory of hydrogen atom. Please take a screenshot of this one. Now Bohr's theory of hydrogen atom. According to Bohr's theory, a hydrogen atom consists of a nucleus having positive charge Ze and electron having charge E. Now suppose this electron revolves around this nucleus with some mass m and moving with a velocity v. Now you have to find the radius of this permitted orbit around which the electron revolves. First, I will find radius of permitted orbits, right? So how you find radius of permitted orbits for hydrogen atom according to Bohr's theory? Now, to keep this electron in its orbit, in a fixed orbit, or you can say stationary orbit, the centripetal force must be equal to electrostatic force of attraction between this positive charged nucleus and electron. So to keep the electron in a fixed orbit, this electrostatic force must be equal to the centripetal force. Now, what is the formula for centripetal force? mv square by r. And what is the formula of electrostatic force? K q1 q2 by r square. Remember na in chapter 1 Coulomb's law? So what is the value of this charge of this nucleus? Ze, where Z is atomic number, charge of electron is E by 4 pi epsilon r square. R is the radius of this permitted first orbit, right? From here, mv square becomes this one, Ze square by 4 pi epsilon r, 1 r is cancelled here. Then r becomes Ze square by 4 pi epsilon mv square. This is equation number 1. Now, according to Bohr's quantization condition, angular momentum must be equal to integral multiple of h by 2 pi. If this condition satisfies, then only electron revolves in that orbit. Electron only revolves in those orbits for which this angular momentum must be equal to nh by 2 pi. From here, you get V. V is equal to what? nh by 2 pi mr. Now, you put these values of V, this value of V in equation number 1. Equation 1 becomes R equal to Ze square by 4 pi epsilon m V square. V is what? nh by 2 pi mr. This whole square. Now, again, you take this one in the numerator. 2 pi mr whole square means 4 pi square m square r square by 4 pi epsilon naught m n square h square, right? Here, this one is r this side. 1 r is cancelled here, right? 4 pi is also cancelled. Here 4 pi is gone, 1 pi is left. Then m, 1 m is also cancelled. So from here, r becomes, 1 r is left here. Na? This r becomes, in the denominator, what is left? Epsilon naught n square h square, right now? So r equal to here n square h square epsilon naught by z e square. Then 1 pi is left here and 1 m is left here. So pi z me square. This is the radius of hydrogen atom according to Bohr's atomic model. R equal to n square h square by epsilon naught by pi z me square. This is atomic radius for hydrogen atom or hydrogen like atom, like helium ion, lithium ion. Those ions or atoms having only one electron in the outermost shell. So this formula is valid for only those type of atoms, right? Now for hydrogen atom, what is the atomic number? Z is 1, and how many electrons? Only 1 electrons that lies in the innermost shell, right now? So here n equal to 1. Now R becomes what? H square. If n is 1, Z is 1, then R equal to H square epsilon naught by pi m E square. You put the value of these different constants for electrons here. H is what? You know the value of 6.3 into minus 34 epsilon naught, you know value pi m mass of electron 9.1 into 10 31, charge of electron 1.6 into 10 30, that was 19 coulomb, right? So you put different values here, you get R equal to 0.529 angstrom. You can write R is near about what? 0.53 angstrom. This is the value for radius according to Bohr's atomic model for hydrogen atom, right? R is 0.53 angstrom, or formula is this one for hydrogen atom. So for innermost orbit, this is the formula for radius for hydrogen atom. So this radius is also called Bohr's radius. What is Bohr's radius? Radius of innermost orbit of hydrogen atom. And Bohr's radius for hydrogen atom was 0.53 angstrom. Here it's clear that R is directly proportional to n square. It means radius of the permitted orbits are increasing in the order. If n is 1, 1, 2 means 4, means 3 means 9, and then 4 means 16. So radius of the permitted orbits increasing in the order 1:4:9:16. So this is about radius of permitted orbits for hydrogen atom and hydrogen-like atoms, right? Now after that, I will discuss what is the velocity of this electron to move in this fixed orbit, first orbit, right? So speed of electron. First you take a screenshot of this one fast. Now speed of an electron. I'm going to derive the expression for speed of an electron which revolves around the nucleus. You know, radius of the permitted orbit is given by n square h square by epsilon naught by pi z me square, right? Now according to Bohr's quantization condition, mv are equal to nh by 2 pi. From here you get v equal to nh by 2 pi mr. Now you put the value of r from equation 1, you get nh by 2 pi m n square. What is the value of r? N square h square epsilon naught by pi z me square. From here one n is cancelled, one h is cancelled here, right? Pi this 2, no, 2 is left, okay, 2 is not cancelled. So z m is cancelled here, e square. So from here you get v equal to this z e square, pi is also cancelled na. This z e square becomes in the numerator. So v equal to z e square by 2, one n is left here, one h is left here, and then epsilon naught, right now. So v equal to z e square by 2 n h epsilon naught. This is a speed of an electron which revolves around the nucleus. From here it's clear that v is inversely proportional to n. Thus electron which is closest to the nucleus, it means when electrons which are in the first orbit has maximum velocity, because as you move towards the outer orbits for equal to 2, 3, its speed decreases. So those electrons which is closest to the nucleus has maximum velocity. Now for hydrogen atom, you know Z is 1 and N is also 1 because hydrogen has only one electron. So this V becomes, you put Z1 N1, it becomes V equal to E square by 2H epsilon naught. After putting the value of different quantities like this one, charge of electron, Planck's constant and epsilon naught permittivity of free space, you get V equal to 2.19 × 6 meter per second. Now you compare with the speed of light. What is speed of light? That is 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. So V by C becomes, you divide these two, you get 1 by 137. It means V by C. So V is what? This one, equation number 3. For hydrogen atom I am talking about right now, divided by C. So E square by 2H epsilon naught, so C. And this V by C is a pure number. This is a pure number, dimensionless constant. And this V by C ratio is called fine structure constant. It is denoted by alpha. And you know, for first orbit, this V by C equal to, this V is C by 137. This constant is called fine structure constant, denoted by alpha. And for hydrogen atom, it means for first orbit, this V becomes equal to C by 137. So in this way you can find the speed of electron revolving around the nucleus, and for hydrogen atom speed becomes this one, right? E square by 2H epsilon naught. And as you move forward towards the outermost orbit, because V is inversely proportional to N, then the speed of the electron decreases. Okay, so please take a screenshot of this one. After that we will discuss total energy of the electron. Now after discussing radius and velocity of electrons in stationary orbits, next we will discuss energy of electron in stationary orbits. This electron is revolving around the nucleus. This electron has some velocity. It moves in a circular orbits with some radius r. And what is the energy of this electron? So total energy of electron in any stationary orbit is nothing but E equal to K plus U. K is what? Kinetic energy, and U is what? Potential energy. Now you have to find total energy, then you have to calculate kinetic energy and potential energy. Now what is kinetic energy? Kinetic energy is half mv square. So to keep electron in its orbit, you know that centripetal force is equal to electrostatic force of attraction between nucleus and electron. From here you get what is centripetal force? mv square by r equal to electrostatic force. Charge of nucleus is Ze and charge of electron is E. So Ze square by 4 pi epsilon r. From here you get 1 r cancel. Half mv square equal to Ze square by 8 pi epsilon naught r. Already we discussed this step in the previous when we find what radius and velocity of electrons in a particular orbit. So from here half mv square becomes this one and half mv square is what? Kinetic energy. So kinetic energy becomes Ze square by 8 pi epsilon naught r. This is the expression for kinetic energy. Now next is potential energy of an electron. You know what is the formula for potential energy? Q1 Q2 by 4 pi epsilon naught r. Here charge of nucleus is Ze and charge of electron is minus E because this potential is a what? Scalar quantity. So you take sign of negative, that it shows charge of electron negative sign minus E. So then it becomes minus Ze square by 4 pi epsilon naught r. Equation number 4 is the expression for potential energy. Now kinetic energy plus potential energy gives total energy of any electron in a particular orbit. So kinetic energy Ze square by 8 pi epsilon naught r from equation number 3 and potential energy is minus Ze square by 4 pi epsilon naught r. Then when you solve this one, you take in the numerator 8 pi epsilon naught r, 4 pi epsilon naught, LCM is 8 pi epsilon naught r. Then here Ze square and minus Ze square, then this becomes, here is 1 minus, here you get 2. So 1 minus 2 is minus 1. So in the numerator it becomes minus Ze square by 8 pi epsilon naught r. This is the expression for total energy of electron in any particular fixed orbit, right? From in this equation, you know what is the value of r, radius of this orbit. You put the value of r equal to n square h square epsilon naught by pi m Ze square in this equation 5. Equation 5 becomes minus Ze square by 8 pi epsilon naught n square h square this epsilon naught by pi m Ze square. Here pi cancel, right? And then in this equation becomes minus Z square, this Z comes in the numerator, E square also comes in the numerator. So Z square e to the power 4 and 1 m is also here in the numerator, it also comes in here numerator, right? So minus Z square e to the power 4 m by 8 epsilon naught n square h square, epsilon naught twice, so epsilon naught square. Finally this expression becomes all other things are constant, only n is variable for electron. So minus m Z square to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h square 1 by n square. Here it's clear that E is inversely proportional to n square. As you move towards the outer orbit, second orbit, third orbit, here it is negative sign, so its energy increases when you move from inner orbit to higher orbit, because negative sign decreases, it means its total energy increases. What does this negative sign shows? Negative value of total energy indicates that electron is bound to the nucleus. And how it bound to the nucleus? By means of electrostatic force of attraction between nucleus and electron, so that it is always bound to the nucleus because of that electrostatic force of attraction, and always some work is required to be done to pull it away from the nucleus. If you want to pull it away from the nucleus of the atom, you have to apply some work, right? So this negative sign shows that electron is always bound to the nucleus. They are not free to move out of the nucleus of the atom, right? Okay, now for hydrogen atom, you know Z is what? 1. Then this total energy becomes minus m e to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h square 1 by n square. Now you know mass of electron, its value is fixed, charge of electron, epsilon naught permittivity of free space, h is Planck's constant. After putting all these values of these constants, you get E equal to minus 13.6 by n square. Energy is in electron volt. The value for these constants after solving, you get minus 13.6. So total energy for hydrogen atom becomes minus 13.6 by n square electron volt, where n may be 1, 2, 3, 4. First orbit, n is a principal quantum number, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. In this way, if you put n equal to 1, it means n equal to 1 means innermost orbit near to the nucleus, that is ground state of the atom. Energy is minus 13.6 electron volt. When you put n equal to 2, you move further from first to second orbit, energy becomes 2a square means minus 13.6 by 4, you get minus 3.4 electron volt. In this way, when you put n equal to 3, you get minus 1.51 electron volt. So here you find that negative sign decreases, it means total energy increases, and at infinity it becomes 0. In this way, you find here that energy for a particular orbit, particular level is fixed, and that is called energy is quantized, means quantization of energy. Energy is quantized for a particular orbit, energy is fixed, and as you move further towards the outer orbit, its energy increases. Now how you draw this one in energy level diagram? Okay, please take a screenshot of this one first. Now after finding energy for different orbits, this one is energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. For n equal to 1, the electron is closest to the nucleus. At that time, it has minimum energy, that is minus 13.6. This minimum energy state is also called ground state, right? So, in the ground state, electron has how much energy? Minus 13.6 electron volt. For n equal to 2, it has energy minus 3.4 electron volt. For n equal to 3, minus 1.5. In this way, for n equal to infinity, it has 0 electron volt. After that, it becomes free from the nucleus of the atom. So there are two types of energy. One is excitation energy and the one is ionization energy. To knock out the electrons completely from the ground state of the atom, it means to free the electrons from the ground state, minimum amount of energy required is how much? 13.6 electron volt. This minimum amount of energy required to knock an electron completely out of the atom is called ionization energy, right? But at a particular temperature, some electron jumps from ground state to second state, third state, fourth state. So these other states are called excited states, and this energy required to by an electron to jump from ground state to any one of the excited state is called excitation energy. So there are two types of energy. One is excitation energy, another one is ionization energy. Excitation energy is the energy required by its electron to jump from ground state to any of these excited states, and ionization energy required to knock out an electron completely from the ground state out of the atom, nucleus of the atom. So this one is ionization energy, and this is energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. In this way you draw this diagram, right? So please take a screenshot of this one. After this, we'll discuss a spectral series of hydrogen atom. It means when electron jumps from one orbit, lower orbit to higher orbit, it absorbs some energy. And how much energy? Discrete energy of photon, that is h nu. And when it jumps from higher to lower orbit, it emits that energy of photon, right? So in this way, absorption and emission spectrum is formed. So we'll discuss how emission spectrum is formed in hydrogen atom. Please take a screenshot of this one fast. Now, a spectral series of hydrogen atom. You know energy of electron in nth orbit of hydrogen atom from Bohr's theory is En equal to minus m z square e to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h square 1 by n square. Now, from Bohr's frequency condition, what is that one? That when electron jumps from any high energy orbit to lower energy orbit, the energy difference appears as energy of photon. It means suppose high energy level is N2, N1 is lower energy level. So when electron jumps from N2 to N1, higher to lower, its energy difference appears as energy of photon h nu, and this is equal to, if you put here in equation 1, in place of N you write N2, in place of N you write N1. So energy difference becomes this one, minus m z square to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h square 1 by N2 square minus 1 by n square, n1 square. This is energy difference between these two levels, n2 and n1, right? From here, this frequency nu becomes, you take this h in the denominator, this becomes m z square to the 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h cube, and this negative sign multiply inside the bracket, and this becomes 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square, this one. Okay, this is in terms of frequency of the emitted radiation, right, when electron jumps from higher to lower orbit. Now wavelength of the emitted radiation is what? You know, nu equal to c by lambda. So nu by c is what? 1 by lambda. So here 1 by lambda is nu by c, and nu is this one, you just divide by c, it becomes m z square to the 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h cube c 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. This 1 by lambda or wave bar, this is called wave number. Wave number is number of waves per unit length. So the formula becomes 1 by lambda or nu bar, this one is symbol for wave number, right, equal to rz square. Here z square is variable, other terms for electron is constant, mass of electron, charge of electron, value of epsilon naught, h, and velocity of light c, all these are constant, right? So I have taken all other constants as r, and r is called Rydberg constant. R is m e to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h cube c. Here this one m e to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h cube c. This term is r. R is called Rydberg constant. Z square 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. This formula is Bohr's formula for hydrogen and hydrogen-like atoms like helium ion, lithium ion, these things, right? And this Rydberg constant value, if you put all these values, mass of electron, charge of electron, permittivity of free space, Planck's constant, speed of light, you get R equal to 1.0973 into 10 to the power 7 per meter, right? Again, for hydrogen atom, Z is what? 1. So 1 by lambda becomes nu bar equal to R 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. This is the formula for wave number, right? Sorry. Thus, from this equation, we find that energy is radiated, because this is formula for frequency or wavelength, wave number. So energy is radiated when electron jumps from higher orbit to lower orbit. Hence, when energy is radiated means waves of different frequencies are radiated from atom, because of which line spectrum is obtained. So here Bohr's explain how line spectrum is obtained in case of hydrogen atom when an electron jumps from higher orbit to lower orbit. He find that waves of different frequencies are radiated from the atom, and because of that line spectrum is formed. So after this one, please take a screenshot of this one, a spectral series of hydrogen atom, 1 by lambda. You must remember this formula, right? So after this we will discuss hydrogen spectrum and their energy level. Now, last topic of this chapter is hydrogen spectrum or line spectra of hydrogen atom. You know, wave number is given by 1 by lambda equal to R 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square, where n2 is what? High energy state. Okay, and n1 is what? Lower energy state. And when an electron jumps from high energy state to lower energy state, what happens according to Bohr's frequency condition? Waves of different frequencies are emitted, and hence line spectrum is formed, or hydrogen spectrum is formed in case of hydrogen atom. Here R is called Rydberg constant. Its value is 1.0973 10 to 7 per meter. So the hydrogen atom consists of different spectral series. When electron jumps from second to first, third to second, fourth to fifth, what type of spectral series are obtained? First one is Lyman series. Lyman series is obtained when electron jumps from second, third, fourth, fifth to first orbit, right? Here n1 is 1 and n2 is 2, 3 up to infinity. When electron jumps from or transition takes place from 2, 3, 4 any high energy states to first energy state, first orbit, then Lyman series is formed, and this series lies in ultraviolet region. So you must remember this lemon series, it lies in ultraviolet region. Here formula becomes 1 by lambda equal to R. Here N1 is what? All electrons jumps from different excited states to first or ground energy state 1. Right now N1 is 1. So here put N1 becomes 1 and N2 may be 2, 3 up to infinity. Right. Now second is Balmer series. This series is obtained when transition takes place from any high energy state from 3, 4, 5, 6 to second orbit, second energy state. Then Balmer series is formed and it lies in visible region. So here N1 is 2 and N2 may be 3, 4 up to infinity. Then 1 by lambda becomes R, 1 by N1 square. N1 is here 2 and N2 may be 3, 4, 5. In this way, Balmer series is obtained. It lies in visible region. After that, third one is Paschen series. When electron jumps from 4, 5 or any higher orbit to third orbit, right? So here formula becomes 1 by lambda equal to R, 1 by N1 is what? 3 square minus 1 by N2 square. N2 may be 4, 5, 6 and it lies in infrared region. Then fourth one is bracket series. This series is obtained when electron jumps from 5, 6 and up to infinity any orbit to fourth energy state. So here 1 by lambda becomes 1 by N1 is 4 minus 1 by N2 square. N2 may be 5, 6 up to infinity, and this lies in infrared region also. And last one is P Pfund series. P is silent here, you can say Pfund series, right? Here this series is obtained when electron jumps from 6, 7 or any up to infinity to which orbit? Fifth orbit, right? Here N1 is 5, so 5 square minus 1 by N2 square. N2 may be 6, 7, 8, 9. In this way, P Pfund series is obtained. It lies in infrared region. And this one is energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. You can say hydrogen spectrum, right? This spectral series are obtained. Here lemon series is obtained where electron jumps from any of the 2, 3, 4 to first orbit. Here lemon series form, it lies in ultraviolet region. Then second one, Balmer series is obtained where electron jumps from any of the high energy state to second energy state and it lies in visible region. Then third one, Balmer series, here is this one. Third one is what? Paschen series, no? Okay. It's written by me, it's a Paschen series. And Paschen series is obtained where electron jumps from this 4th, 5th, 6th to any of the high energy state to third energy state and it lies in infrared region. After that, fourth one, bracket series. This series is obtained where electron jumps from 5th, 6th, 7th, any of the energy state to fourth energy state, fourth orbit, and it also lies in infrared region. Then last one, Pfund series is obtained where electron jumps from 6, 7, 8 or any of the high energy state to which one? Fifth energy state. Pfund series is obtained, it also lies in infrared region. In this way, you explain hydrogen spectrum, different series are obtained, line spectrum is obtained, and this is energy level diagram for hydrogen atom according to Bohr's atomic theory, right? Please take a screenshot of this one fast. So with this, I am going to end the class. Hope you like this one short series for class 12th physics. Only one chapter is left, that is nuclear. So I will cover that chapter also very soon. Please like, share and subscribe my channel. So students, keep revising and stay tuned with this channel. Thank you.